Welcome to the station of decapitation without your head. I'm Nasty Neal.
I'm Treacherous Trista.
And we're joined by Aaron Barrocas. It's very cool to have you here.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Yes. I wish I had an A word to go before my name, but none of them are good.
Yeah, A's a hard one. We'll have to think about it. If anyone watching has an idea, they can send it in. When we'll know about it after we post it. Days
Perfect.
Or something, right? Yeah. First of all, everyone know Halfcock's going to be playing at Shriekfest.
Yeah, so it's actually, I think it's probably going to be its final theatrical showing, because we started right before the pandemic hit. And so we had this good kind of half-year run, and we had planned to have it keep going, and then everything stopped. The world just paused. And so we had a few digital screenings, but for a comedy, that's really, it's not the same as having people in a theater, which at the same time, I kind of don't want to, for the most part, promote a ton of people getting together in a theater right now. But for a comedy, it's so much better to have people laughing together. And because it's contagious, because the one joke that somebody totally misses, another portion of the theater will catch and start laughing at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always say on the show, comedy and horror are the two best things to watch with an audience, because of the interaction. You don't want to sit around and cry with each other, watching.
And just pure escapism. Exactly. I agree with you. It's tough to watch. A drama is something that's internalized, something that's, it's better to watch something that has big reactions that you're asking for, you're asking for crowd engagement.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. The Halfcock, it had the life at the festivals before the pandemic, during it, and it still has some life after the pandemic.
Well, it's kind of like the lead character in it.
They're not necessarily after the pandemic, but when things turn open.
Yeah, well, I don't know when after the pandemic is.
Right.
That could be a while.
Right. Yes, especially with people refusing to do anything. Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah. So, how did Halfcock all come about?
So most of my type of writing, especially I write a lot of horror comedy, but most of it comes from some political interest or political source. I was watching a lot of people in the world. This is around 2018, mid 2018. I was watching a lot of people in the world act against their own best interests. And to me, it's bizarre to watch people just acting in a way that will come around, will bite them. And so I thought of the story of a guy who's granted eternal life, and all he ever wanted was to be dead. Like, he spent his whole life looking forward to death, and then these two doctors grant him eternal life, not knowing that. And what jerks they are for giving him this once in a universe gift. Mm-hmm. And so he tries to undo it repeatedly, and it's his plight to end his immortality. And
it's kind of almost like a less serious version of Dead is Better from like Frankenstein or Pet Sematary.
Yeah, in a way, yes. It definitely harkens back to Frankenstein in a lot of ways. Of the too much ambition without considering the consequences on the part of the doctors, which is, a big theme in the Frankenstein story. But although, in all honesty, I've never seen the movies.
Really?
I've never seen the Frankenstein movies. No.
Interview's over.
I read the book, but I never saw any of the movies other than Young Frankenstein.
I'm a big fan of Young Frank. I do remember, I probably said this on the show before, but one year I was at a festival, well, not a festival, a marathon, showed all, old horror movies, and one of them was Frankenstein. And on my Uber ride home, it was a young, I say young kid, but he's probably in his 20s, and he's asked what movies, and I was telling Frankenstein, and he's like, oh yeah, I remember seeing the real old one. And he started explaining to me, and I was like, oh, he's talking about Young Frankenstein. And he thought this was the original movie, but I didn't bother correcting him.
Why bother correcting him?
Right.
Gene Wilder is classic.
He is pretty much. Yeah, definitely. Well, that's weird though. Are you a horror movie fan? Like, have you seen other horror movies?
I love horror movies. but I grew up on 80s slashers, big time. And so, for me, it was Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, not so much Friday the 13th, although I'm just coming around to that kind of now. I never was a huge fan of the Friday the 13th series, although now I'm starting to see their charms a little bit more. But that's the stuff, Leprechaun, that I, grew up watching. And almost anything Stephen King put out put out under his name.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Trista, I thought she was really into that one question, but then I realized she was frozen. But so hopefully she gets back.
Oh, I thought she was just put off by the whole idea of not having seen Frankenstein.
It could be. I have many Frankensteins behind me, so, and on the shirt actually. So
nice.
I'm a little pissed. No, I'm just kidding. It's interesting though, because now you can watch them for the first time.
That's true. There's a lot of stuff. I'm watching Zombie for the first time now, which I've never seen, and because I am kind of trying to explore classics to some degree, and Zombie's a bizarre movie. Dario
Argento, yeah. Some people call it Zombie 2, but yeah.
Yeah. Like a zombie fights a shark and the zombie wins. It's spoiler, but it's
not to spoil the movie.
Well, I think that's like 10 minutes in. But anyway,
like 40 years ago. But yeah.
But I'm actually enjoying going back and watching some of the classics thanks to Shudder.
Yeah, Shudder's great that way because it's cool because they got the classics, a lot of like indie stuff that you know if you don't go to festivals and come from the festivals, and a lot of foreign stuff that not that long ago would have been really hard to ever see if not for something like Shudder.
Yeah, and what's very cool is because I've been going around kind of the festivals a little bit lately the past few years, and you start to see stuff that you saw there showing up and getting an audience in places like Shudder and Prime in general. And that's really cool to go around festivals and then see these people start to break through and doing, getting nationwide and international audiences for their stuff.
Yeah, because I'm fairly new to the festivals, probably like 4 years now I started going. I used to do like a lot of conventions, and then I think a better fit with the festivals. And that is part of it's fun to see like, hey, I knew this guy, I met him at the festival, and now his movie's coming on Shudder. And you feel, even if you just met him or something, but you feel a connection to that. Like, hey, that's really cool that this guy's thing's doing well.
Yeah, especially if they're like nice people,
right?
Or people that you really want to see something happen for them. Mm-hmm. So it's great. Yeah. You get to follow people's journeys in a way. Definitely.
So Halfcock was that your first thing you directed?
So I guess it was my first short film that I directed. I used to do years ago as a producer on The Soup, and so I was doing weekly comedy sketches for them. Mm-hmm. But that was like, okay, well, we've got a location set. We've got, you're using these 3 writers as your actors, and go out with, a camera and a skeleton crew, and you have 3 hours to shoot this bit. And so I guess Halfcock was the first thing that was actually staged like a production, where we had multiple locations, multiple setups, and having Sophia Cacciola and Mike Epstein as the 2 producers, they brought in a very professional and, weathered crew that was able to handle it. Hello, welcome back. That was able to, make it into a film rather than something that I was running around with the camera with, running my own audio and trying to get on TV the next day.
Good to have Trista back. I had thought you were really into one of the questions because we were froze there just looking very astute.
Riveted.
Yes, and Aaron was hoping you didn't just hang up because of what's seeing. But Aaron had just when you came in was talking about directing his first short, and with Michael and Sophia. So I was wondering, did you know Michael and Sophia before that?
Me. Okay. Yeah. So I met them in 2018 at Genre Blast when they were showing their movie Clickbait that had just come out, which is not to be confused with the current Netflix series, which, no slight to the current Netflix series, I won't be negative about a current thing on the air, but their thing is much funnier and more entertaining by far. And I saw like 20 minutes of the current series, so I can judge. But their thing is much more entertaining. And so I met them there, and then we wound up working together on. So there was a short film that went around last year called Boo by Rakefet Aberjo. So I'm just destroying people's last names today. But we met on like a promo shoot for that again, and we talked about the idea of shooting Halfcocked. And I'd given them the script, and they were into it. And so we all got together and we planned a way to kind of make it happen. And we're casting, and they said, Pat Healy lives in our building, who's like this, rather successful and rather, well-known and kind of excellent indie film actor who's worked in major films and small films and always kind of has this very trademark, very unique way of presenting himself. And they said, would you like us to ask him? And yes, absolutely. And so he came aboard, and that kind of made a huge difference. And then he helped cast the rest of it as well. He helped us find London Boyd, who went on to play Rudy, and who nobody else, I think, could have played that role any better, any more like intelligently than London did, because he really took it at a very intellectual level, and that helped the comedy tremendously. And then Vanessa was an open call, and nobody made us, like, we watched probably 200 casting tapes, and nobody made us laugh anywhere near what Vanessa did. Like, we were on the floor, and I brought it to my wife, and she was on the floor laughing. So, and everybody else felt exactly the same way. So we wound up with this, what I think was this fantastic 3-person cast.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Trista, do you have a question?
Yeah, I don't know if you covered this in my absence or not, but I'm a big fan of Sitting Ducks. So can you talk about that?
Well, thank you.
I am as well. I am Team Trista here.
I appreciate that. So after Halfcock, I brought this script to Sophia, and I said, so I got one more script for you. This is before the pandemic. And it's odd because the script is about a couple who've both been working from home, and the wife can no longer stand the presence of her husband. And it wasn't anywhere near as prescient at the time that I wrote it. And we were going to shoot it in like March of 2020. And we were going to shoot it the weekend that the world stopped. And then somebody, everybody started saying, this is not going to be safe. And I called it at the last minute, the Thursday. We were supposed to shoot on Saturday. On Thursday, I called it. I said, we can't do this. This is too unsafe, and it breaks my heart. And I didn't think we were going to shoot it. I said, we're going to put it off until things are more chill, and they weren't. The world just stopped for a year, and I just assumed we weren't going to shoot it again. And we had cast kind of one of my childhood heroes, Tuesday Night, in it. And just pure coincidence, she wound up, submitting to this project, and like Nightmare on Elm Street 4 was the first movie I was allowed to rent on VHS, or the first horror movie I was allowed to rent on VHS. It kind of introduced me into the world of horror comedy. And so to shoot a movie with her was like the coolest thing ever. And then it was paused for a year, and I was heart-wrenched. And then when it was paused for a year, the whole world began to echo the thing that I had written about. I was like, oh my God, if we had shot this and I could have released this during the pandemic, it would have made sense to everybody. But then we started planning it around the idea of a world now. And so there's a newscast in it, if you look closely, where they're talking about, in the background, where they're talking about schools reopening and life perhaps getting back to normal, what that will look like. And there are people in masks in it. And it does feel more like something that I think a lot of people now really can relate to, because I know so many people who did have to work with their spouses at the same table for a year. And they just sat there for a year, and they worked together, and they'd never seen their spouse at work before. They'd never known what kind of personality their partner had outside of the home, and they saw whole new sides to them. And I kind of joke that it's autobiographical, that my wife wants to do this to me, but I'm also kind of not joking because she does want to kill me. And the idea, there's a scene where the husband is up on a ladder and he's on this, like, the film doesn't do it justice. It's actually like 20 feet off the ground, the smoke detector that's in my house. And the whole idea for the movie came when my father-in-law was holding the ladder for me to change the smoke detector. And I said to him, Michael, here's your chance. Nobody will ask a question. But the movie grew out of that one moment.
And now that that's out there, she can't, knock you off because now people will know.
She can't. And it turned out, I was really happy. She was wonderful. And she played off Michael King fantastically. And he just killed it as this truly unbearable human being that nobody would want to be around. And I feel bad that I saw that in him. To cast him.
You're perfect for this role. Yeah.
He's a very nice gentleman, and I like him very much. But he just killed it.
Yeah. What is it about horror comedy that's appealing to you?
As we were saying, I think we were talking about this right before we went live, but the idea, these are the two most escapist genres, is horror and comedy, something that takes you so far out of the real world, but you can still do a lot. You can still say a lot. You can comment on quite a bit in, the form of analogy, but you are not in, you're getting out of your life. You're just experiencing joy, and it's like childhood. Like you're experiencing these fairy tale fantasy stories that nobody would ever, you wouldn't just walk down the street and see a zombie eating somebody. Or, you really might see a wife trying to murder her husband, but not half as comedically as ours do. And it gives you an excuse to turn off your brain in many ways, and maybe just turn on a different part of your brain that can just go back to that, enjoying fiction at a level that does not necessarily have to be, cerebral at all.
Mm-hmm. Some of you brought up a couple times was like you are watching some of the classic horror movies that you didn't see, before. So what kind of movies did you watch when you were growing up that made you want to become a filmmaker or work in films?
Well, I love comedies and horrors. I mean, horrors, I was an 80s kid, so it was the slasher movies, Halloween, anything Michael Myers, even the bad Michael Myers, although some of those are tough to watch now. But like most of the Halloween movies I loved growing up, Nightmare on Elm Street series, I at one point probably had them all memorized, and which sounds weird, but I just like movies. And then like I was saying, Friday the 13th, I didn't get into as much as a kid. Now I'm starting to kind of come around and see some of his charms, but as a kid, it never hit me because it was so on the nose, just this one guy trying to kill people over and over again. Now I see some of the nuances, some of the comedy that's there, but stuff like also just classic 80 movies like 3 O'Clock High, if you've ever seen that, with where they just take a camera and they make it into a character in the movie, and it's like a study in comedy filmmaking, and anything that was actively trying to make me laugh.
You said some of the bad Halloweens. I've always said, instead of all these direct sequels to the first Halloween, I want a direct sequel to Part 6, because we never had a payoff of what's going on here. It just ends, and then they reboot the whole series.
I think the last time I saw Part 6 was when it came. I haven't had it in me to ever rewatch Part 6 because I
watch it all the time.
Maybe I owe it a rewatch.
It's not particularly good, but from 4 to 6, it kind of had a storyline going, and like he's like, do you think Michael's like satanic or something? And then it just ends, and then it goes to H2O. So you never know what happens.
Which that blew my mind in the theater, seeing H2O. That was a really cool Halloween film that I felt I got to watch, like, as, you know, at that point, like as a grown up, not seeing it like after the fact on VHS, but going into the theater and seeing, you know, I almost gave away a spoiler for a 20-year-old movie, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I like it too, and it's weird because it's kind of like now it's cool to hate H2O, and I remember when it came out, most people liked it, but now it's like cool to say it's really bad. I don't know. It's almost reverse of Halloween 3. When I was a kid, I was the only person who liked it. Now it's like everyone likes it.
Some movies do that. Nightmare on Elm Street 2 turned around. Now everybody can kind of appreciate it. Halloween 3, I always liked Halloween 3 as well. But yeah, that was the one that people always, it was just like popular to hate because it wasn't Michael Myers. But H2O, I did watch it again recently, and it's definitely dated now. You definitely feel it's dated, but it's still such a fun movie. I can't see hating that movie. I can't see really knocking it. It's just pure fun. It's silliness. And Jamie Lee Curtis is just never not awesome.
Yeah. The follow-up, not so much, Resurrection.
Yeah, that wasn't a great movie.
Yeah. So Sitting Duck, Michael and Sophia are both in it. Sophia's great as a cop. And what's Mike? One of their characters refers to Michael. It's not to give away the movie, but mohawked butt hair, I believe.
Mohawked butt hair.
Yeah. Where did that come from? I've not heard that phrase before.
Just looking for a unique insult, because he wasn't originally, you know, it wasn't originally necessarily written for him to play that role, but then, and it was some other insult in the script. But once he got like, well, he got a reference to Mohawk
and butt hair. I mean, and those are the two things we always think about when we think of Michael.
I feel like that came from, honestly, Henry Rollins in The Crow somewhere. He called somebody a butt hair or something like that.
I do approve, honestly, all kidding aside, because I like sillier insults instead of the basic things.
If you're going to write something into a script, it should have some, you know, something that isn't words you hear every single day. Right. I think if you're writing a comedy. Yeah.
Trista, you have another question?
Do you have any other upcoming projects you want to talk about?
Okay, I do. But so I just finished writing. So I'd written this short, and it's not a horror comedy. It was just straight out like horror, maybe thriller, called Arabian Blood, that I'd sent around as a 26-page, which is extremely long for a short, but a 26-page short that I sent around to the festivals and kind of did well. And so I wrote it into a feature. And so now I'm sitting on this script that I actually love, and it's like kind of one of my favorite things that I've ever written, that is like this limited location, all-female protagonist and antagonist feature. And it's super fun, super scary. And so now I'm actually actively trying to bring attention to that and find people who want to read it and who might even be interested in producing it. So that's my next thing. And then other than that, I just got a cool new job editing the show Tuning Out the News for Paramount Plus, which is up for an Emmy this weekend.
Oh wow.
But I wasn't on it when it was nominated, so I can't take any credit. It stands to reason that, like, had I been on it, it may not have been nominated.
And if it doesn't get nominated next time, now they got to blame.
We know who's responsible.
A couple things there. First of all, you said get people interested and, you know, read it and everything. So how would people go about to do that? Like, how would they find it or get in touch with you?
I wish I knew, but anybody can reach out to me at, you know, you can go to aaronbarrocas.com and follow, and there's a contact page there. You can email me. If I say it, does it get written like, so I don't understand YouTube or Zoom?
I know, but I could edit it into here and put it up.
Okay, cool. So anyone could email me at aaronsbarrocas.com. Just put the S in, because there's a kid in Texas who beat me to my Gmail address, and he's like a teenager, so I guess his parents bought it for him because I got this in 2009 and it was already taken. But he beat me to my email address and to Twitter.
Really?
And so if you
take this guy
Google
down.
me, and he's kind of obnoxious on Twitter. He says quotes like if you ain't got the sauce, but you can get lost in the sauce. Anyway, so
I'm gonna go follow this kid. He seems pretty cool.
Right. But if you Google me, he's there like making it look like I wrote these things on Twitter. And so he's the one who, if you write Aaron Barrocas at gmail.com, he's gotten job offers for me in the past. He's got like confidential materials, tax information. If he wanted to, like if he ever got in legal trouble, he could probably not have to do anything other than go through his emails to fully assume my identity and just go through the rest of his life as me.
That could be the next movie. Yeah, I like
Long story short, the S in the middle.
Yeah, I wonder what should be cooler if he or not necessarily cooler, I don't know what the word is, but if he posts like really obnoxious stuff, or if he really posted great stuff, because then it's like everyone thinks this guy's me, but he's like, wait.
Yeah, if he was like, hey, I won another Nobel Prize, I wouldn't be, cure cancer again. Cool.
The only other Neal Jones that spells his name the same way is an actor from now I forget. I'm going to blank on
Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing. There we go. And one time someone did message me on Facebook, wanted to know if I would do an interview. And then I found out when the more they asked me, it was for Dirty Dancing, and I was like, "You got the wrong person."
Did this happen mid-interview or prior to the interview?
No, it was a mess. That would have been pretty awesome.
That would have been fun.
Yeah. Then they just hang up. But unfortunately, the interview didn't happen. But the other thing I wanted to ask was about editing, because some people, really dislike editing. And so what drew you to editing, and why do you think some people aren't into it?
Well, I mean, being an editor because I'm an editor for a career, and it's tough because sometimes you love what you're working on, you're doing something super fun. Like right now, like I mentioned, doing Tuning Out the News, which is super fun. It's a comedy series. That's great. I've been on shows that are dreadful, and you have to watch the footage day in, day out, over and over, hours and hours of it. And sometimes you're on a show where you're doing something that's completely repetitive, where like, okay, well, now I'm cutting to the audience laughing again. And like you're faking the audience laughing because you're reacting to stuff that isn't funny. And there is times when it's a truly, and you're ultimately responsible for everything in the end. Whatever happens, the delivery of the show, no matter what everybody else did, the delivery of the show is on you. And the lower the budget show, the more responsibility you have. So whereas, on the highest budget stuff I've ever worked on, I just throw things together. I do my edit and then hand it off, and somebody colors it, somebody does the sound design and the sound mix, and then it's fantastic. The lowest budget shows I've been on, I'm coloring, I'm doing the sound design, and then everything that can go wrong is in my hands. And it will go, I just will screw up somewhere. That's just, what people do is we screw up. And as far as when I was 10, I kind of wanted to be an editor though. Like I saw what the role was in filmmaking, and I wanted to be part of that molding process. And when I was working as a producer on like basic cable comedy stuff, I was so hands-on that my editors would leave for the night, and I didn't know how to use Avid at the time. They would leave for the night, and I would go on their machines and make what I wanted to happen with the show happen. And that's kind of how I taught myself to edit, was on shows that were literally airing the next day. And I was like a micromanager in that sense, but I didn't have to be a dick to somebody else to be a micromanager because I could make it happen myself. Yeah. And I liked that. And so I wound up leaning towards that. And a lot of times it's really rewarding. A lot of times there's shows that you work on that that feel really good to have put them together in the way that they were. And I've seen people win awards for stuff that I've edited, and I've taken a lot of pride in saying, like, I'm really glad that, like, I could help make that come together in the way that it did, that worked for so many people. And one project that I'm excited that I'm editing right now actually stars Neal Jones, and it's called The Once and Future
Things
Smash.
have really gone bad for you. Oh.
And that's also produced by Sophia and Mike Epstein, and that's a really fun documentary about, as you know, this film that existed like 20, 30 years ago that barely anybody had heard of, where the stars get to meet up. And this meetup happened once again the weekend before the pandemic hit, and
right before everything closed down.
It's insane. Like, I watched this footage that it was like the last weekend in February of 2020 or something, or the first weekend in March, and everybody's packed together in this at this convention, and it's actually crazy to watch that nobody knows that everything is just about to pause. But I'm glad that it happened that weekend, that meetup happened that weekend, so that we were able to get this awesome documentary footage to put together this reunion of these two characters that played the same role.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the finished product. And also big thanks to Mad Monster and Eben McGar for giving us full reign at the convention to get the footage. It's a good guy.
Absolutely. Kind of looked like you guys had full, access to a lot of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and almost everyone there. Well, everyone there was very accommodating. It was a good time. So, about the editing, do you edit your own stuff? Do you edit your own?
Yeah, shorts? Yeah, and that's not out of preference necessarily. That's just because if I was overseeing the edit and it was somebody else editing, they would physically hurt me. I would not be able to. I'm completely neurotic about post and about how everything has to be. And you can ask Sophia and Mike. I send them 30 emails a day during the post process. If somebody else was doing this, they would just stand up and they'd just throw all my footage in my face and walk away after 10 minutes. The movie I saw that you were in, Echoes of Fear, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Which I was just mentioning earlier that I saw that in 2018 at Shriekfest, and at the, I think, world premiere of it, and later on I got a chance to meet the Avnet Bradleys, and that was just a really cool, fantastic film, and I didn't know that he was the sole editor on it, but the post on that was awesome.
Yeah, I loved it too. For people, that's how Trista and I met, was through that movie, and people who haven't seen it should definitely go check it out. And it's very cool because it's still playing, getting new releases around the world.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Of course.
Did I just see recently, like, it was opening in, like, it had like a new opening in like Prague or something?
Indonesia.
Indonesia.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I'm excited about our new film as well. The Avnet Bradleys are hugely talented people, and hopefully we can all meet up sometime soon. Yeah, I'd love that.
Sorry to confuse Prague with Indonesia, by the way. That's very different.
It's a common thing, yeah. How about the transformations of Dr. Jenkins, which I believe just premiered at Genre Blast?
I love that movie. That is such a cool movie that I guess it was Bob Rose and Stephen Stoll, Sophia and Mike and Kate McCoy, and am I leaving anybody out from that directing, producing team?
Is Liesel involved in that? Liesel Hansen?
Yeah, I believe so.
I believe so.
Yeah, Liesel, yep. Yeah, she is.
I believe so.
I did a Q&A thing for her, and she's in there.
Yeah, there's a cast of thousands. They what they did was
I was too, but then I dropped out because
Really?
I'm very bad at going through completing things. But yes.
So wait, so you were supposed to be part of it, and you didn't wind up shooting.
Mm-hmm.
That's a shame. That would have been a fun segment. They sent the same script to everybody, and I guess we weren't supposed to know that everyone had the same. We were supposed to think that it was part of a consecutive movie, and that we're supposed to shoot these 2 pages that were intentionally written confusingly. Like they were intentionally written as a director's nightmare, where there were 2 characters with the same name and it didn't specify which was which. Blocking was rather confusingly written, and it just left so much up to chance that I will admit, I was not like, a lot of people thought that they were shooting something in a consecutive. The second I saw the script, I'm like, okay, they sent this to everybody and it's brilliant. And so I shot it kind of assuming that everybody was shooting some version of this, but that wasn't the commonly held belief. And they had this like premiere that I believe you emceed, that Neal, that had everybody dropping their jaws when they realized that they all shot the same scene. And it's kind of brilliant. And they're most of the people involved are very creative filmmakers. So it was cool to see everybody's take on this one 2-page, bizarrely written science fiction style theme.
Mm-hmm. It is the whole idea behind it's great, and it's very fun to watch. I'm curious when the audience first realizes what's going on. Like, is it right, or the second clip? Because they don't really tell you. It's very interesting.
I would guess you'd have to be like 3 in before you've wait a second, because there's also different. Then the second scene, you might not even realize that the dialogue's all the same, but by the 3rd time, wait a minute, this is, how long is this? How many times am I going to watch this? but it really gets brought to life in such a cool way, and everybody, and
they do a good job cutting it up so it isn't monotonous.
They do, and they play characters in it themselves, and it's just super creative on every level. It's like a pure exercise in creativity, and to some degree it's like a talent show, because you get to see people use sock puppets, you get to see people who've never picked up a camera before shooting something on their cell phone, and then you see weathered filmmakers who are shooting it with what would be like a $10,000 budget. Just because of the equipment they have in their home. Right. And so it's a cool experience of a movie. And if you ever get the opportunity, I would suggest watching it with an audience. Which I
have not had a chance to do that, but I think it'll be definitely fun to watch with people to get their reactions. I think there would be, and this isn't knocked any, but I bet there will be some bad reactions, and it would just be interesting to get everyone's reaction.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there could be bad reactions to it. I could 100%.
I don't think it's gonna be something for everybody, but I do think at festivals it'll probably be more fitting, because the people would probably be more into movies. Obviously,
and it's probably going to be more movie
makers and things.
Yeah, it's for people who want to see something different. For people who aren't immediately put off, like, oh, this isn't what I'm used to. Well, that pisses me off.
Yeah, which happens, quite a bit.
It does.
Yeah. I did want to mention, too, for Halfcock, is the effects were by Joe Castro. And what was he like to work with? He's a very fun guy.
Oh, my gosh, he's amazing. So yeah, there was a lot of talent in it. Joe Castro, and I'm going to get around to Catherine Capozzi at some point, because I can't not mention her. She's incredible. But Joe was another catch that, like, Sophia and Mike were like, hey, we have some connection with Joe Castro. We can reach out if you'd like to. And I looked at his IMDb, and it's a novel. I mean, if you look up Joe Castro IMDb, it's like, and so many recognizable films on it. And he loves working with practical effects. He does digital stuff too, but he absolutely loves, his enthusiasm for blood is bizarre. Like, if you just start talking to him about blood, in 5 minutes, you are uncomfortable. But he, like, the first meeting with him, he was like, amped up and telling us, okay, so I'm thinking we put some fire hydrants and we have the blood spraying out of fire hydrants. I'm like, well, what would this blood be made out of? I can't tell you that. That's a secret. And we actually did that. In the end, we actually had him wired up with fire hydrants running up and down. And Joe goes, okay, we get to do this once. I'm like, okay, let's get 3 cameras on. Let's do it. And the blood starts. And I mean, it's such a fun spectacle working with him. And even though, like, even and he actually did a lot. He did all the makeup on Rudy Collins as well, which he had planned this evolution because Rudy Collins in the movie starts as just playing out dead, and then he comes to life more, but then he gets horrifically injured repeatedly, and then I can't say what happens after that if you haven't seen the movie. But there were so many different stages of near death, post death, alive, and very injured that it was like a continuity challenge for where in his makeup it was. And Joe kept constant track of that, even though we weren't shooting anywhere near in order. But Joe kept constant track of that. Was pretty fantastic about creating this bizarre zombie makeup that had like bits of road stuck in his face and chunks of brain falling out of his head. And so there was the gore as well as the makeup. And he was just pure enthusiasm through the whole thing. He called me up the night before we shot. He called me up like 11:30 p.m. and started asking me, so how thick should this blood be? Can it be a little bit black too? Because he's been dead, like he's a zombie and his blood has turned a little bit black. You know, I think it'd be funny if it was mostly red blood just for the effect. Okay, so we're going to do red blood, but really thick red blood. And like even sitting duck, he started talking to me about the viscosity. And there's one, I can't really talk about what it is too much, but there's one really serious blood effect in sitting duck. And even though it was kind of a minor, like it was one effect, after Halfcock, I absolutely had to have Joe do the blood effect. So same thing, he came on, he's like, well, I want to make it like a 70s movie blood. And if you look at it, it really is. The blood is like a 70s movie in the way that it's like thick and it's a little darker, and he's just pure happiness and enthusiasm about blood and gore and death. And he's brilliant at what he does. I work with him any day of the week.
Yeah. And you also said you wanted to mention Catherine Capozzi.
Wait, did I just say her name wrong? Have I been saying her name wrong for years?
That's how most people say it. But she's always impressed by the way I say Capozzi.
Well, now I'm
half Italian.
Capozzi.
Yeah,
because I've been saying Capozzi. But okay, so Catherine is another person who we brought on for Halfcock, and she did an incredible score for that, kind of independently, and we didn't work as closely together on Halfcocked which I love what she created on that. But when we did Sitting Duck, we had constant back and forth because we talked about this a year in advance. And as we were doing the score, there was this constant like working through it and working through what we were trying to create. And she created this really cool kind of textured and layered sound because she's a rock musician. Like she is a brilliant rock musician, and she's a fantastic guitarist, but she's also an amazing composer, and her stuff just sounds wonderful to hear. And I love this. In the end, like it's a weird thing to be proud of the score of your movie because it's the one thing that you can't have anything to do with. I don't even really understand music very well. I love music, but I don't know anything about it. I've never been a musician, and I can't talk to musicians in terms of music. All I can talk about is the energy, the vibe. I can say, make it sound like this, make it sound like that. And beyond that, I'm well out of my depth of knowledge. And so there's a limit on what I am able to communicate. And so I can take zero credit when like for loving the score, but still be so proud of what she created and that it's in this film that I'm happy with. So she's the absolute best.
Definitely agree.
I'm a rambler. Sorry.
No, excellent. I agree. I'm a big fan as well. And it's cool because all these people are people all three of us know and worked on various things with. And that's also what I like about the festivals, because you get to meet people and eventually, you might be able to work with them.
It was, I mean, that was cool about, even in Halfcock, Rakefet, who we mentioned, has
she's got the cameos Jax.
She has a cameo playing her role Jax from her short Jackson Love that went around. It's like such inside baseball, but it plays if you don't know she's Jax. The scene still plays, but it's a really nice nod for those who were, on the festival circuit at that point in time and saw this movie play at every horror film festival.
Yeah. I'm very jealous of her award. She won it was like a trophy, and it's like a horror hamburger. I tried to steal it. It was at a Happenstance Horror Festival here in Massachusetts. That's where I met her for the first time.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it's very cool. Very jealous. But Trista, do you have another question?
I'm always interested in what scares horror creators. So do you have any fears or phobias you feel comfortable sharing?
I'm all fears and phobias. Like, I'm very little else. I'm like this my personality.
My favorite answer of this question.
Myself is like 90% fear, and part of that is I'm a parent. I have a 4-year-old. So when you're a parent, any fears that you had before that just quadruple. But also, like, I'm just now starting to appreciate spiders. I spent my whole life as an arachnophobic. Thanks to the movie Arachnophobia, which I saw in theaters, and it was like my mother's friend took me to see it, and she shouldn't have totally messed me up. I was definitely too young to be seeing that movie, and it made me an arachnophobic for my entire life until recently. There's a Facebook group called All Bugs Go to Kevin that is like all people who appreciate bugs and spiders, and I found it, and then I'm like, well, I can't believe, like, I feel like a bad person at this point if I injure a spider. I feel like I have to kind of relocate them very nicely now, and it's weird to me now that people just go around killing bugs left and right, just comfortably murdering. But yeah, I'm scared of everything under the sun, loud noises and public places and social settings.
Oh, so I guess this hasn't been that bad for you then, Leo.
Even, you know what? Even like this new job, like I'm now on Zooms regularly,
right.
And I spent a year just being given a drive and turning in work and emailing, and now I have to see people and talk to people, and it's like, it's a new thing. It's something that it's easy for an introvert to get really used to living in a vacuum, other than, my family.
Mm-hmm.
But they already know exactly how terrible I am, so I don't have to pretend to be okay in front of them anymore.
Well, be careful on the high ladders. So Halfcock's playing at Shriekfest. Sitting Ducks is starting its festival run, I believe.
Yeah, we just opened up at we just had our premiere at Genre Blast, and we won Best Produced Screenplay Short.
Oh, awesome
award there. And now we're going to be at Film Quest and Horror Movie Freaks coming up in the near future.
Nice. And where can people follow you? You might have mentioned this before, but where can people follow you and your stuff to see where it'll be playing?
So first off, I invite everybody just to come and be my Facebook friend, please. I like seeing that number and feeling like I actually have friends. And so that's Aaron Barrocas on Facebook. Not the kid from Texas, but someone who looks like me. And anybody who wants can email me at the email address. And also there's aaronbarrocas.com, which I'm no better at putting together a website than I am at composing music. So it is what it is, but you can contact me through there.
Excellent. Very cool. I can't interact with you currently because I'm currently banned from Facebook. but
Are you really?
Yeah, for 7 days. But I'll be back
Seriously?
there
Because
eventually.
you have the most interesting Facebook feed.
Well, I appreciate that. But yeah, it's banned. And then and they banned my main account. And then I made a new account. All my other ones were banned. Not to have a million, but and so then I made a whole new one. And then I posted there for a couple of days. And then it said to keep Facebook safe. This is banned too. And I'm just a very dangerous person, apparently. So
That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
But I'm sorry that's happening to you. But in all honesty, I didn't know if you were like a for real person or if your stories were fabricated, because like you're like, oh, well, I'm walking to the deli where I get free sandwiches every day from the guy, and I won the lotto there, and the woman behind the counter asked me on a date, and
it's kind of mixed up a little bit, but it is similar. Yeah, my friend Annabelle says I live in a Stephen King town because a lot of weird things goes on, but I think it's fun to write about mundane things, but make them.
But that's not mundane stuff.
No, it probably isn't.
Nobody.
I actually did win $100 last week on the dollar free ticket that my buddy at the convenience store gives me a free ticket.
You see, that's like, and you've done that several times.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was 17 years old, which was in the 90s, and I won a Chicago Cubs ticket that I couldn't go to see off a Mountain Dew can, that was literally the high point of my life. Like, I've been reliving that Mountain Dew can, chasing that dragon for years.
This is so sad, Aaron. We can't end the show like this.
I love it.
I'm just saying, it's really cool. That stuff's not mundane. It's really cool that that you are having and documenting those experiences. And I feel bad that the avenue that you use for that has been taken away from you.
He'll be fine.
I'm just concerned about all my followers. I just assume it's going to become like Lord of the Flies without
You have to stop.
follow them. Trista's like, don't encourage them.
Exactly.
Very cool. It's my favorite interview. No, seriously, it's been really fun, and I think we should do this again sometime.
Absolutely, that would be great.
Yeah. So get to work and make
you guys in person at some point.
Yeah,
Yeah, I love that. I'm sure we
absolutely.
will. We know so many of the same people.
And we'll definitely at some point probably have a Smash premiere, or a Once and Future Smash premiere that will be covered in depth by Without Your Head.
Yes, it will. Yeah, I've been hard at work this week as we're living up. I was just like producer name, but I've been getting people involved in the movie. So
It actually looked like you were doing.
it worked out. I guess
being
being banned from Facebook. I have time besides posting nonsense. I can actually do stuff that I'm supposed to be doing.
But it honestly looked like you guys did a phenomenal job with that first pre-pandemic shoot. As kind of terrifying as it is to watch all the crowds when you know that some of them probably at that point in time were sick, because of when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
But it really looked like you guys did a phenomenal job on that shoot.
I appreciate that. It was honestly a lot of harder work. Not that I assumed it would be easy, but yeah, and got a lot of stuff done in 3 days.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you
so much for having me on, and this was a lot of fun. And you guys are the best.
I thought it was great.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, and not just because you're here. Trista and I really both really liked Sitting Duck and Halfcock.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
That's really cool, because I didn't know what people were going to think about it, because we rushed it. Like, we cut the whole thing in a month.
It's really fun. It's very fun.
Thanks.
Yeah. And great performances, well made, everything around.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.